All right.
Okay, we are live. Welcome to Tuesday Night Live, Boxes of Comics. I'm your host, Chase Higgins, and tonight we have special guest, Matt Skura.
Yeah.
Matt, how are you doing?
I am doing great. I was originally in Texas for the last month and a half or so, and I decided to come back to the stomping grounds of California, visit my father for his birthday, and visit a great friend and Box of Comics host, Chase Higgins.
Well, I'm a great friend. Okay, so as you know, we did end up finishing our first book of the book club, Batman Year One. I personally love it because it's just a great story of how Batman became Batman. But now we are moving from DC into Marvel, and this isn't going to be your ordinary book. It's going to be everything you need to know about Marvel. And as you can see, it's a pretty thick book. It's at least 2 to 3 C's, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say it's dummy thick.
So we're gonna be going through this dummy thick book, and we're just gonna go ahead and talk about it. So, as you might know, this is Marvel, so that's characters such as Spider-Man, Iron Man, Black Panther, Thor, the Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four. But this book goes individually through characters and teams, supervillains and superheroes. So it's a pretty good book. I have read it before. Matt, you've never even heard of this book, have you?
I have it. I'm going in all wide-eyed and can't wait to see what it has in store.
Yes. So, like I said, we're not going to start it tonight. We're just going to preview it. Matt, how's your knowledge of Marvel?
My knowledge of Marvel is okay. It's not the best. I wouldn't say like I'm the wise guy when it comes to Marvel, but I mean I can understand like some characters.
Okay. Who is your favorite Marvel character?
My favorite Marvel character. I mean, there's a lot of characters to choose from. I'm gonna go with the classic, Captain America, just because symbolizes America. And Chris Evans, he had a funny quote. I remember, it's like, "This is America's ass," and
it definitely was.
Definitely was. And I just overall, I mean, you could also maybe say Iron Man as well, but I'm just going to go with the old classic Captain America.
Okay. Well, speaking of Iron Man, I don't know if you saw, but in the new Doctor Strange movie, there is rumors of Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise? Mm-hmm. He's going to be a version of Tony Stark because he did actually end up auditioning for the role of Tony Stark way back in 2008 Iron Man. So I saw that and thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that definitely sounds pretty cool. I mean, you look at Tom Cruise, he's been in action movies like Mission Impossible, and if he would have been Iron Man, it definitely would have been interesting. I mean, if Tom Cruise was Iron Man, we probably wouldn't see like Robert Downey Jr. would become as an actor, because obviously Robert Downey Jr., he basically made his living off of Iron Man. Yeah, he did other films, but his main film was Iron Man. Like, people know Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and Tony Stark. Like Tom Cruise, you got a bunch of things for Tom Cruise. You think of Mission Impossible, and if he would have been Iron Man, that just would have been another thing on top of him. But with Robert Downey Jr., you just would have known who he would have been. Like, he would have had some classics, but not, Iron Man, Tony Stark. Like, that's a name seller worldwide.
Definitely. And speaking of Robert Downey Jr., for one of my classes, my history and appreciation of film, we had to watch another Robert Downey Jr. film called Chaplin. And it was actually a pretty good movie. It's kind of cool to see Robert Downey Jr. before he actually became famous once again and took up the role of Iron Man. So that's pretty cool, just to see what Robert Downey Jr. was doing back before the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe had started.
Yeah, it definitely was, just to kind of see like where it becomes. Like, obviously we know like the original Charlie Chaplin, he was a main silent actor. Like, he would always do like funny stuff, and seeing Robert Downey Jr. kind of start off as that before Iron Man, it's definitely tells that he has two different perspectives. Like, he could definitely do like the little quiet comedy, even like some comedy roles, and then he could be serious action packed with Iron Man.
Yeah, definitely. And another interesting thing, bringing up Doctor Strange 2, that's going to be the multiverse. And there is some speculation that that's how they might tie in all of the previous iterations of characters, such as the 3 Spider-Man. You have Tobey Maguire, then Andrew Garfield, and then Tom Holland.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have past iterations of the Fantastic Four, where it's you've got Chris Evans as the Human Torch, and you have the originals from the early 2000s. But then you had the 2015 reboot, which wasn't as strong, but it was pretty good. Oh, speaking of which, we have our first live comment. Peacemaker. Peacemaker, he is one of the people that is in my Reddit group.
All right.
And so I told him 6:30, probably your time, or maybe not. Maybe it's the wrong person. Who knows? Could be completely off. But yeah, so this book is pretty interesting because it goes through the entire Marvel comics, not quite the Marvel movies, but there is a lot of different types of just information, and we're going to be on this for quite a while, as you can see, Matt. Like, how many pages does it have? It has 242 pages. So obviously this book's going to take a while to get through. We're probably going to read it all because why not? What else?
I'm very excited to get into it. Obviously, it's a big book, but I mean, with comic books, it comes with like a short amount of words. So I feel like it's going to be great. And with that big of a book, it might be just all of the Marvel characters in at once. So it's going to be interesting to see how this author incorporates all the characters in at once throughout a storyline. Yeah, or if there's just separate storylines throughout the text.
Yeah, because by looking at it, it looks like an encyclopedia of Marvel characters, as you have Thor, and then you have the different versions of Thor, but then it tells you a bit more about the characters, and then you can flip a couple more, and it's characterized as, here's the Hulk. He's got some quotes along with some information, so that's actually pretty neat to see, and as it gives you information. Here is Thanos, as this must be the villain part of the book. So always pretty cool. Now, going off of Thanos, he was the big guy in not 1, not 2, but 3 phases of the MCU, the first 3 phases. Obviously, he's now gone, and there are rumors of who's going to be that big bad guy, and I'm curious to see what Marvel's going to do with that as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty curious as well. I mean, we look at Thanos, like he kind of made his name. Like you saw some bits of Thanos. Like I remember in one of like the Thor movies, like when they went through in like a little dungeon, they showed like the little Thanos hand. It didn't have, I don't think it had all the stones on it. I'm not sure if it did, but it was like a little stone hand. It was like, oh, that's just a little fake thing. I'm just like looking back at it now after watching pretty much what was it, Infinity War, where we first saw Thanos. Looking back, and I was like, wow, like it was made reference back in like one of like the Thor films. I'm not sure which one, but in like the Thor era. So being able to see that was kind of cool, and then seeing Thanos just kind of evolve to what he was, getting each kind of stone. It's definitely going to be interesting to see who they replace as the big villain, because he's got some big. They got some big shoes to fill, because Thanos, he wasn't like a little side character that could easily replace. He was one of the big villains, that the Marvel guys tried to defeat, which I mean, spoiler, they eventually did, I believe. What was the last Marvel movie that they did?
They did Endgame, and then there was the new Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, in either one of those where like Tony Stark goes full hero mode and does it himself. Yeah. So definitely gonna be interesting who they make as the main villain. Will it be maybe like will Venom make a comeback? Like maybe they have like this ultimate like Venom character where his main side foe was Spider-Man, but maybe they just create like Venom where he's just one for each character. It'll be interesting to see how they're going to use the villain. And Marvel's pretty good with villains. Like it seems like in every superhero movie, like there was always a villain like even in Captain America, like when it was Civil War, like little did Captain America know that it was actually his brother that was the villain, but there was a villain in that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Okay, well, before we move on, I see we have another person, Superior Hero Reviews. Thank you for joining us. As you might know, just based off of our conversation, we are talking about Marvel villains. And that is because we are going to start reading absolutely everything you need to know about Marvel Comics. So yeah, villains are going to be good coming up. I don't know if they're going to make like a really big Thanos villain. Maybe they'll have like more smaller ones because Thanos is a pretty big villain to conquer. And I don't know if you saw, but the rumored villain is King the Conqueror in Ant-Man 3. And he's a descendant of Reed Richards or Mr. Fantastic, and he's from the future. So people are saying that maybe Ant-Man 3 can introduce the Fantastic Four because Marvel now has the rights back to Fantastic Four. So that'll be interesting to see if they do end up going that route of having them connected or whatever they do. So yeah. What else? Do you think like any more, I guess, failed Marvel actors can make a comeback into MCU? I know we've seen Chris Evans. He was the Human Torch, and then he became Captain America. And then we had Killmonger, who was also a Human Torch. What's his name? Michael B. Jordan. He was in the new Fantastic Four reboot, and then he made his way into the MCU.
Yeah. So as was it like Black Panther's partner that he had to go up against?
Yeah. So Killmonger, but I wonder if they're gonna possibly bring back Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Like, I want to see if they bring back one of the old Spider-Mans. Even if like maybe Tobey Maguire is one of them as well. Like, it'd be interesting to see like if they bring back any of the old Spider-Mans before Tom Holland. It'll be interesting to see like if they incorporate them. What if maybe they incorporate them as like a villain?
Yeah,
like they were originally like a good guy, and then they eventually turn into the villain. It'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there. And I also kind of want to see, sadly, as a lot of people know, like Chadwick Boseman, actor for Black Panther, sadly passed away for cancer. I wonder if they're going to like recast the Black Panther and put in a different actor, or are they just simply just keep it's for Edward Chadwick Boseman and we're just no longer going to include, Black Panther, just like in memories and like maybe flashbacks of film. So I'm wondering if they do that, and if they do recast somebody for Black Panther, I wouldn't be surprised if it were maybe like a Michael B. Jordan, like maybe somebody who has been in Black Panther before and could fill in that role. But that's a big if. My opinion, if I were Marvel, I wouldn't run it back. I would only just refer to Black Panther as if you go flashbacks like previous movies, like previous Black Panthers. I would just pull in those lines just because I feel like Chadwick Boseman, he was Black Panther. Like there's really nobody else you could put in to replace Black Panther. So when he tragically passed, I don't think you can replace anybody because like some actors you can. Like, you saw, like you discussed with like Chris Evans. Like Chris Evans, he was originally one of like the Human Torches, and he eventually worked his way into Captain America.
Right.
So,
and you also saw that in Iron Man for Rhodey. They decided to change actors after Iron Man 1, and now it's the current Rhodey. So that's interesting how they did that. And another thing for Black Panther is that in the comics, when T'Challa does die, his younger sister Shuri does become Black Panther. So I'm curious if she now becomes Black Panther.
Yeah, maybe they could play into maybe it's like the next enthroned because the Black Panther, he was originally the king. Maybe if they do remake one, maybe you could see like them incorporate like the passing of Chadwick Boseman, maybe they could say like our king has tragically passed. We now have a next enthroned, and it could be the character that you just mentioned. Or maybe you could see it being Michael B. Jordan, and maybe he has a change of heart, because obviously, like when you see Black Panther, Michael B. Jordan kind of wanted to like overtake the whole thing, and he started destroying like the main plants and stuff, and kind of wanted to change it. Maybe he might have a change of heart. That's if they do it. Obviously, I think what they should do is just leave it be. Just leave Chadwick Boseman. Only throw him in like when you're referring back to previous movies in the past in your new movie. But if they decide to go that route, I wouldn't be surprised if they do like replace like a lineage, like maybe like the sister replaces him instead of being like the king, be like the first ever queen, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Another interesting thing that Marvel had stated is they recently casted their She-Hulk for the series on Disney Plus. Now, I'm not 100% correct on She-Hulk, but I think she's Bruce Banner's sister or lady interest. I'm not 100% sure, but they did end up casting her, and the Mark Ruffalo, who plays Bruce Banner in the MCU, says that he's not done playing the Hulk, even though, like, in Endgame, we said goodbye to a lot of the original characters, such as Iron Man, Captain America, and so forth. But so it's pretty interesting to know that even though they're bringing in a She-Hulk for their TV series, they're going to still keep a Bruce Banner. So I wonder if they're gonna like have him mentor the She-Hulk, or if they're just gonna be two at a time Hulks.
Yeah, maybe they could incorporate a storyline where the guy Hulk meets the She-Hulk. You know, it could be that, or it could be like where Hulk is looking for like a sister or something, and that sister could be She-Hulk. It'd be interesting to see how they incorporate it there. And overall, you know, I'm kind of glad Mark Ruffalo hasn't given up. You know, he's one of the staples. Like, I think he started like when it was the Hulk, like he was the guy that they started out at first. So very rarely do you see like characters like start off one and finish two. I mean, there's also, you know, Robert Downey Jr. started as Iron Man, finished as Iron Man. You know, Mark Ruffalo, he has a chance to be that, you know, where he started as Hulk and can finish it. And, you know, with Mark Ruffalo, Marvel, they can approach it in different ways. They could either, like you stated, Chase, they could either say that, hey, maybe regular Hulk mentors the She-Hulk to, you know, kind of like do this, like this is how I did it. You know, you could follow the same things if you want to, or whether they make a storyline of Mark Ruffalo searching for the She-Hulk, or if you want a big plot twist, maybe you could say the She-Hulk is the villain. Like maybe they could say like, oh, you know, it's a She-Hulk, it's all nice and cuddly, all good stuff. Wrong, just hammered down villain. So it'll be interesting to see how Marvel decides to go at it, but they have a lot of options to choose from.
They definitely do, and like I feel like they've only used probably 25% of their characters, so they could still pull characters such as the Fantastic Four, which they recently got, and the X-Men, She-Hulk. But you also have lesser-known characters such as Moon Knight, which is like their version of Batman. So, and he's gonna get a Disney Plus show. And you have like all these, I guess, D-level or C-level characters that can now go into the spotlight because of the first three phases, and a bunch of those characters are now gone. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting. And maybe they could even make a storyline on how Thanos was created, like how he became the kind of guy that he was, you know, because I mean, very rarely do you just see like tall, giant, buff, purple people, like maybe from his own planet. You know, he came from, you know, there has to be like some sort of order. And you kind of saw it like in Infinity War, like how he like described his childhood, but maybe they could go more in depth and kind of create like how he became Thanos. So then you could throw in clips in Infinity War that flash forward into that. So yeah, like you stated, Chase, they've only used about 25% of their characters. They can make so many more movies, so much more money, and just be a good business.
Yeah. Before we move further, I just want to say that Peacemaker had said that the next heir to the idea sounds pretty cool, and that would be interesting to see. Now, for Thanos, he's obviously not coming back, but I do believe that he's rumored to be in the next Eternals movie, which would be pretty cool, as they're like the gods of the Marvel universe. So that'll be cool to see if they include like a younger Thanos, like how they did a Captain Marvel prequel. I think that's what Eternals is gonna be. I don't want to keep this too long, so maybe go an extra 5 minutes. What else?
I'm just excited to go through the book. I mean, Marvel, they got a lot of options on what movies to do, just because, I mean, like Chase previously stated, they've only used like 25% of the characters. So you got a lot of options that you could choose from. And, you know, with like I know we talk about Marvel, but like even with like DC, their recent movies that they're making, like especially like with like Aquaman and stuff, like Marvel, they got a whole lot of characters, a whole lot of weapons to utilize, and even a whole lot of storylines too. So it will be kind of interesting to see kind of like the new like MCU and how it goes. Because what is it now? Like phase 3 or is it
phase 4?
Phase 4. So it'll be interesting to see how they attack phase 4 of the MCU and kind of see like, will we get new characters? Because obviously we have the main staples, you know, the Captain Americas, the Iron Mans, the Hulks, the Thors, but will we possibly get new characters? You know, it is a new phase, so it'll be interesting to see what will happen in phase 4. And definitely going to be exciting movies to watch for. I think Marvel releases most of their movies in like April and May.
Yeah.
So whenever like those Aprils and Mays in the next couple of years, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, what kind of movies they have out in store and what kind of storylines they're going to have.
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be interesting to see what new characters they bring in, what new villains, and getting a bit into the end here as we approach 23 minutes, and I'd like to keep it no more than 25. Hopefully we get some of those answers sooner rather than later from Marvel. But like I said, we are going to start next week with reading Marvel, Everything You Need to Know. It's a pretty big book, so we're going to be doing a lot of live streams, remember, every Tuesday. And in case you didn't know, we do have an Instagram and a Twitter account to follow us on. Same handle, at Boxes of Comics. Pretty simple. And I am debating on doing more mystery boxes, as the only mystery box that I have given is to Matt Skura. So I think I'm going to start doing those. Probably put 3-4 comics in a box and then have a grand prize. So that could be interesting and intriguing to do. And that's all I have for tonight. Any last thoughts, Matt?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on as a guest. And it's going to be exciting to go through the book. You know, it's going to be over 200 pages. And, you know, it's probably going to be over 200 pages of excitement because Marvel really knows how to keep the readers engaged, whether it's books or movies. So I can't wait to dive in the book.
Okay, that's all we have for this show. Don't forget that we have videos posted every other Saturday. So we will have a new video posted this week. We go live every Tuesday between 5 and 5:30 is when we will start, just depending on my schedule. And that's all I have. I hope you stay safe and you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining us.